sought to address the challenge of addressing cardiovascular disease in post-treatment cancer survivors. We know that for many common cancers, post-treatment survivors have twice the risk of cardiovascular disease compared to the normal population. Many of them have adverse cardiac risk factors. ASCO and other professional organizations have suggested that all survivors need to have a cardiovascular health assessment and discussion as part of their routine oncology care. So we wanted to find an easy, workflow-aware way to make that happen for post-treatment survivors. So I worked with my colleague, Dr. Randy Foraker from Washington University on the automated heart health assessment tool. And what this is a cardiovascular health clinical decision support tool. It takes information about cardiovascular risk that is in the EHR, combines it with some new information about physical activity and diet that is not ordinarily in the EHR, and makes an easy visualization for oncology providers to use with post-treatment survivors at the point of care. So because this tool is embedded in the electronic health record, we needed to use what's called a practice randomized design. So we randomized 9 oncology clinics, 5 to the usual care, just to delivering their routine post-treatment survivorship care, and 4 to have the EHR cardiovascular health assessment tool embedded in their EHR. So we had 9 clinics, and then we enrolled 645 post-treatment survivors within those 9 different clinics. We asked them, they consented to the study, they came in before a routine visit with their oncology provider. They filled out some baseline information for us, then they went right into the clinic, had their regular visit. In some of those clinics, the intervention clinic, the providers had access to the tool and could use it if they thought it was appropriate for the clinical encounter. In the usual care clinics, they didn't have access to the AHA tool. And then when survivors left that visit, we immediately gave them a survey on the way out the door, either by email or in person, and asked them to tell us about what happened in that encounter, so that we could understand if cardiovascular health was a point of discussion during the care. We'll just be reporting on the results from that initial post-visit survey. We are continuing to follow those survivors for up to a year later to find out the long-term effects. So we were really thrilled with the results. First off, most importantly, probably, both our patients and the oncology providers who participated in the trial thought the tool was acceptable, that it was easy to use. They were glad to have access to that as part of their care. So that's really important. For our primary outcome, which was looking at, did a discussion about at least one cardiovascular risk factor occur during that post-treatment appointment, we more than doubled the rates in the intervention clinics compared to the control clinics. So in our intervention clinics, about 97% of those survivors told us that they had a discussion about cardiovascular health, and that rate was only about 50% in the usual care condition. And when we broke that down to look at the number of cardiovascular risk factors that were discussed, for this study there were 7 total that the intervention addressed, things like body mass index, physical activity, diet, blood pressure, fasting glucose. Of those 7 risk factors, on average, only about 1 was addressed in usual care clinics, and there were 4 times as many addressed in the intervention clinics. So on average, survivors talked about a little bit more than 4 with their oncology providers. And that was true when we looked at those individual risk factors across the board. We had 50 to 60% higher rates of discussions in the intervention clinic compared to the control clinic for all of those factors. So I'm really excited. This seems to be an effective way to promote this clinical practice guideline of having cardiovascular risk discussions with cancer survivors. So providers who participated in the trial really appreciated having this tool available. The patients also thought it fit well with the clinic. So I'm really excited that this seems like a viable solution to helping providers deliver quality care. In our future work, we're of course going to look at ways to scale this up. So we want to know, how could we get more providers using the tool? How could we increase the number of patients that they decide to use the tool for, so that we have greater reach for this intervention? using EHR tools is challenging in oncology, and so I'm so grateful to cancer survivors who chose to participate in this trial and provide their valuable information, and most importantly to our oncology clinics that participated. A really neat aspect of this trial is we used what's called the NCI Community Oncology Research Program to accrue the patients and the practices, and this program is really designed to bring oncology research to the community setting where ordinarily those patients might not have access to cutting-edge research. So we did this trial in the midst of COVID, and at times, it was very challenging to recruit patients and providers. So I'm so appreciative to both the oncology practices that took this challenge up in the midst of COVID and the patients who decided to participate.